Yo, what is going on YouTube? Hope you guys are doing fantastic today. Today we got 9.1 or 9.11 update notes. Hoping for some bangers. This is the RuneScape update. A lot of RuneScape stuff. Going through all this. This skin, fire. We're going to communicate our balance changes in a new way this update. We'll see how players react to this and potentially make it a pattern going forward. So let's know what you said. Instead of breaking down changes up into simply items and gods, grouped by class or alphabetical order, we will instead focus on more specific balance goals and then include all the buffs and nerfs relevant to each goal. Okay. So 9.5 in time to kill. So this is just talking about time to kill. 9.11 goals. Mage early game shift. So a buff to mage early games. Holy this one's dangerous. Okay, I hate how this is ordered. I hate how this is ordered. Mid hunter nerfs, late game burst damage nerfs, red buff conquest jungle monster nerf, Bancroft's claw nerf, vampiric shroud and upgrades reworks, stats only reworks. This is cool. This is cool. Sands of time buff. Didn't need it. Soul gem buff. Kind of needed it. Why did they buff Sands of Time? Everybody buys Sands of Time. Nobody buys Conduit. So why are we buffing the better one? Soul Gem buff, needed it. Cronus Pendant, dangerous because supports build it. Buffs to a bunch of the weaker mages, and then a nerf to the strongest mage. Titan's Bane nerf, Obshard nerf, Staff of Mirrodin nerf. Good nerfs, bad nerf. I think Mirrodin, maybe it was deemed the strongest mage option, and it's kind of bought in every game, so maybe that's why they nerfed it. But I think Staff of Mirrodin was a healthy item. I think these two items are unhealthy. Specifically this item and how it is right now with its stats. Crusher nerf, Titan's Bane nerf, Amu's and Cobb nerf. Classic. Warrior solo buffs. Sigil buff, Runic Shield, this is huge. This is a huge solo lane change. This is really good for solo lane. Needed it, needed it, needed it, needed it, needed it. Very much needed it. Like, this is cool, depending on how those are used. Late game damage burst nerfs. So they nerfed supports. Damage late game. Utility relic buffs. I wonder what that means. Spirit robe buff. I don't think Spirit robe necessarily needed it, but it's fine. Gauntlet of Thebes buff. Why are we buffing Thebes, man? Thebes is fine. Thebes is a fine item. Supports were like... Supports felt good. I guess if they want to bring up the bottom end supports or mid lane supports up to like the top tiers, that might work. Well, I think both those characters are pretty solid. Dual Hunter buffs. Gilded Arrow buff. Diamond Arrow buff. Nice. Griffin Wings earrings buff. And then Ishtar, Dan's, Hachi, Kronos buffs. Serrated Edge buff. That's kind of nothing. Okay. Bancroft's Claw. This is mostly just a Hades nerf. It's going to be drop. This shield is going to be a lot smaller. It's still going to be bought because the other one's just worse. But I still think this is a good spot for it. I think 0.5 is going to be a good spot. Maybe they could have started with 0.6, but it'll still be bought on Hades. Nobody else really uses it that well. Sands increased 2 damage on mages from 10 to 15. So, in case you were curious of what's hunter or what's mid lane mage item starter that you wanted to go, this just about clears it up that you will never, ever, 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 ever be going conduit item or conduit, and you'll be going Sands of Time. Vamp Shroud, okay. 20 to 30, remove the protections, remove the health, increase the lifesteal, and increased or added MP5. Who would even use this item now? 7% lifesteal magically is pretty bad. MP5 on it is nice, but it's still not it's still not enough MP5 to keep up with Sands, and then it's still less than Conduit. I mean, it does become a mid lane item now. It's no longer a solo lane item because you removed this, you removed this. Getting additional lifesteal is fine. Getting MP5 is nice. The problem is you really have nobody that builds this. It kind of comes down to what do they do with the starters or the upgrades. Vamp Shroud, 150 magical power, 50% lifesteal, physical protection up to 40, remove the 100 health and added MP5. Doesn't really do that much. Power 75 to 95, removed that. I think Vamp Shroud is still bad. I think both of these items are still bad. I'm pretty sure you will never be building Vamp Shroud ever. Maybe like Anubis, maybe... I've got no idea who's going to be building this. Maybe like a Hebo for some reason. Gods that spam abilities can maybe use this one, but you're only at 95 power. You're getting no protections. You're getting a little bit of health. These items are just weird. I feel like they're just in weird spots where there's like nobody that really wants these items. Maybe this one eventually, but 95 power is really low. Soul Gem buff. So now you can get this stacked just from your base cooldowns, which is a pretty big change actually. Maybe magical hunters will be building this. Olarun, Kronos, Freya. Probably not Freya, but Olarun, Kronos, potentially. Soul maybe. This is probably a soul item. Soul might use this really well, but she uses mannequins even better, so maybe not. Kronos buff, 2600. I mean, it's a buff. Does it really help the item? I don't think so. The item, or the problem with Kronos Pendant wasn't that its cost was too high. It's that you really can't build the item. If you build this item, you're not building Sand, so you'll be going Conduit into Kronos Pendant, and then you'll be sitting at about 110 power in 2 items, or in your starter and then your second item. And then you look at You look at what you could be going instead. Book of Thoth, which is giving you like 180 power and flat pen. Warlocks is giving you 165 power and percent pen and health. Even like Do More, which is like more expensive, is giving you like 80 more power when you have it stacked. It's a decent start. I think supports might go back to building this because that's kind of the problem with Cronus Pendant. I think they need to make it more expensive and then just keep the cooldown. That's a nice little Agni buff. Flame Wave, and this is a bigger buff. This buff is nice. This buff is just pretty good. That's a nice Agni buff. This is some nice help along with mage item buffs. So 11 seconds at all ranks. Woo! Woo! That is crazy. Dude, this character will always have this ability up now because this is the last or second to last ability you max. That's crazy. That's crazy. Discordia buffs. Her clear is even better. She has one of the best clear gods in the game with her one, and then like how the balls jump around. Like she's like one shots the archers, and now she's just gonna be doing it even easier. Royal Assault increased range of the deployable handicap. Okay, so you don't have to walk all the way up to the wave now, which is nice. Divine Shroud HP from 270 to 230. A little extra survivability. Not like game changing or anything. She is a little bit safer on clear, and then she's a little bit safer with her shell or with her shield. Not bad. Nuwa buff. This is a nice buff too. Like these buffs just make you want to try the character again just to see how much better they feel. They're nice buffs and they're not game breaking, and they aren't gonna like blow the god through the roof with the mage buffs on the other hand too. So this is a nice buff. Scylla buff. No, this change is broken. This change is actually broken. This character is going to be walking around one-shotting the wave. It's broken, but I'm down for it. I'm 100% down for it. This is a cool buff. I like this buff because it doesn't like break her, but it's going to make her fun to be like used. So I'm down for that. Okay. I saw Zeus and they just changed the camps. I was going to say, I thought they were going to buff like Zeus's base damage for killing camps or something like that. This is a good buff. This probably should have happened a while ago. I mean, both of these are good buffs. It helps him in the early game. He was so bad early game. And now he's just better. This isn't going to make him like an OP pick. Actually, now mages can clear well because they can clear their own red buff. They can clear waves now. And now their late game 6-slot build of like Pendulum, Booker Warlocks, a flat pen item, Reaver, Mirrodin, Obshard is broken. And then they can go like a Mantle or something. Maybe stuff like Zeus is going to be really strong. Morgan, Deadly Aspects, damage from minions from just remove this. Just remove this. She did not need it. This is a good nerf too. This is a good nerf. This should just be removed. Decrease initial base damage, bonus minion damage, and bonus god damage from... She's gutted. Dark Omen's doing 5 less damage. She is gutted. This is a good nerf too. It was up way too often late game. This is a good nerf. I like that. Titan's Bane. Good partial revert on it. It used to be 2550 in the power of 55. I think this is a good middle ground. I think they might need to do a little bit more on it. 2,500 gold for this item is still very, very good. And they didn't touch the pen. So if you have this item, you're going to do a lot of damage to tanks still. I mean, same with Obshard. They just took it down a little bit. So they kind of have like a happy spot or a happy medium for these two items. And I think they've kind of found it. Stab at Mirrodin. I mean, okay, not too bad. That's not a bad nerf. I was worried that they were going to be hitting like the cooldown or like the power or the pen or something. Down from 25 to 20 is a nice spot for Mirrodin. I like that. Crusher nerf. 5. You pair Crusher with Titan or with Trans, which makes it like such a powerful combo because when you build Trans, you're getting about 100 and something power, 105 power. Maybe it's just 100 now. And then when you get Crusher, you're sitting at about 105. Pairing them together, you're getting cooldown, you're getting flat pen, you're getting a ton of power, you're getting a little bit of attack speed. Like they just comboed really well together. And yeah, this does hurt the jungle. AMC nerf. Holy cow. 50 damage, dude. Dude, this is the same thing that Ullr got. This is the same thing that Ullr got. Now this character is going to be so bad early game because you can't just fight off cooldown with your Stinger. You don't clear as well early game. He's still going to use Bluestone and there's 3. I don't even know if you max this ability anymore because of how bad it is. 210 base damage is dreadful. You probably just max 1 into your 3 and then you just go around to your 2 at the end. Warding Sigil gets an extra 5. Magical Prots, not very good. I don't think this makes the item not very good. Berserkers. Physical protection from 40 to 50. Nice. And mitigation from 7 to 10. Guys, Bologna's back, baby. Erlang's back. Jungle Warriors are back. And now, what we've all been waiting for. Come on. Give me something good. it's probably a safe way to do this one. Unfortunately, the item still just does no damage, and it's super expensive. Like, you compare this item with Glad Shield. This item is slightly less expensive. You're getting basically the same amount of health, the same amount of prots. You're getting no cooldown, you're getting no power, and you're not getting the passive. Maybe gods like Cucullin will be building it, Odin, stuff like that, but like, you probably just still want Glad Shield. Runic Shield, the magical power debuff from 40 to 50. So it was weird seeing Jade's change from flat to percent and Runic staying as flat. You probably still aren't building this item. Even if you're against a magical god, you're probably just going to be going either like Genji's or Oni's or Fey Blessed if you're a healer like Guan. The item, it just ramps up really weird, and then it falls off late game. Look at all the other magical items like Heartward, Bulwark, Onis, Genji, Shoguns, Fey Blessed. Like, these items are busted. Like, Talisman is a good magical defense item. The problem is magical defense items have to be great, otherwise you're not building them. That's why Talisman isn't built. It's the same reason that Pestilence isn't built a lot, because it's just not as good as the other magical defense items. And I think Smite is in a really weird spot now where magical defense items are broken and physical defense items are dog shit. Look at every physical defense item, and Sov is the only one that could contest the magicals, and then they nerf Sov. So this item is still probably not going to be getting built. Sledge, power from 35 to 40. Physical protections per stack from 8 to 10. Magical will remain at 10 or 8. This being 40 power is nice. The extra 6 protections you're getting in a team fight, and then only 2 in the 1v1, probably doesn't bring it to a spot where it's good, because you compare it to Blackthorn, you compare it to Glads, and I think they just do what Sledge wants to do, but better. Glads is giving slightly less power. It's giving 20 power. It's giving slightly less health, but then you're getting cooldown, you're getting more protections, you're getting them all the time, and then you're getting a relevant passive. That's kind of the biggest problem with Sledge. Glad Shield is just statted out of its mind. Also, I say physical items are really bad compared to magical items. Glad Shield isn't really like a physical defense item. It's mostly like a damaging item. It's like a hybrid item. It's like old Void Shield, old Mystical Mail, where you didn't buy it because of how tanky you are. You bought it because of just how much damage you got from it. And it makes you also tanky too. And then you're also getting cooldown from it. Like, it's everything. This, I told him to do this so long ago. You upgraded into this Thorns and you lost out on reflect damage. It was so bad. This is also a really nice change because it allows you to actually get out a lot more damage when you're dying. Honestly, Thorns might be back. This Thorn specifically might be back. This one is not as good. This one's just problematic. You can't use it very well. This item is really good now. With these physical buffs also, like Berserker's being 10% mitigation when you get low, and then you're getting Thorns reflect damage. Like, gods like Bellona, gods like Erlang, gods like Amma, gods like Osiris, they're going to be able to return a lot of damage and do a lot of damage. This Thorn, this Thorn only lasts 3 seconds, which is why it's bad. This one lasts 5 seconds, and then it's giving you movement speed, and it's giving you attack speed. So this might be the returns of Thorns. Hades nerf, decreased detonated damage from... This is the ability maxes first, 20 down to 10. So that they're halving his clear in the early game. This is really big. Like, his level 1, 2, 3 is going to be terrible now. His level 5, 6, 7, once it's back, you're not going to feel any nerf. But this is really going to hurt his early game clear. No longer will Hades just walk up to the wave, auto you once, hit the wave, and then just 3 and clear. So that's a pretty solid buff. Or nerf, sorry. Guild buff now gains HP 5 while this ability is active. How long is the ability active for? 5 seconds. Say you keep it up for 10 seconds. This is giving you back 80 health or 40 health. Like, it's nice, but it doesn't really help out what was wrong with Gilgamesh. The problem with Gilgamesh is he can't clear a wave. He can't clear a wave. You play Gilgamesh, and you have to auto every single wave. You have to use all 3 abilities on every single wave, and you're still going to be getting out cleared. You just can't clear. That's his biggest problem. Dropkick being up a little bit is nice. It helps us clear a little bit. But maybe they're going to try to make him into a brawling character where he fights you in the wave, and he like that's how you out clear, or that's how you play with him. But then you play him into something that just fights well early game, like the Death Toll gods that I was talking about. Osiris, Bellona, Erlang, Amma. They'll just dominate him. They'll out-clear him and they'll out-fight him. Wukong buff. No, not his passive, bro. His Wukong passive is so OP. Wukong passive is so OP. Oh, bro. And then Master's Will. It's probably not that bad. But trying to kill Wukong as a solo laner or as a jungler until you get a lot of % pen is just horrendous. It is so hard. And then late game, it feels like he's really easy to kill. But this is actually a pretty big change. This is 2 to 3 seconds. And extra 50% is actually a lot in the late game. Considering it's also on a, I can't remember if it's 10 or 12 second cooldown. But you can keep this up almost 50% of the time. That's pretty nice. They did it. They did it. Drowned Ankh, 60% anti-heal. There's worlds where you can build Drowned Ankh now. So now, if you're building, if they have a lot of healing, like say they have a 4 heal comp, like Yamoja, Guan Yu, their mid laner, we'll not say Hell because she's not played. Maybe Pele jungle, and then they have like a Cupid in ADC, so they have 4 pretty big healers. There's actually relevance in going a Drowned Ankh on your solo laner or the other Ankh on your solo laner, and then the support having the other Ankh, because it's just allowing you to team fight better. I like this change. It's risky because we're getting into a world where anti-heal is already broken. And if you guys are actually curious about it, I can make a video on like healing and anti-healing and why I think it's in such a bad spot. But now you have two 60% Ankhs, or 60% Ankhs that are also, one is doing 60% extra or 20% extra damage you take, and the other one is doing % current health. A little risky, but power buff when above half health from 10 to 15. So this now is the same amount of power as the other one, and then slightly more movement speed. Again, the problem with the Bracer of Illumination is when you place down the other Bracer, you place it by your team and it just gives you like that movement speed and that power. This one, if you want to get like actual use out of the Illumination part of it, you have to place it by like the enemy. So you really can't run over it. I think this item is now statted better though, which is weird. Maybe the other one's just cooldown now. I can't remember exactly what the difference between these two items are, but I'll have to see. Increased health and mana restore. This is good. This is really good. Really good. Now this one actually contests the other one. Now you have the cooldown and heal one, and then you have a knock up and heal one. So now they both do two different things. One's like a little more peel centric with CC, and the other one's peel centric with them getting their cooldowns up. I like this. This is nice. I think this one is still slightly worse healing. I could be wrong. I think the other one's 40 plus 4%, but I like that. Ooh, this is scary. In late game, if you get hit by this, you're taking another 100 damage from this. Huh. This is crazy. That's pretty strong. 15 to 10% of the target's max AP. The duration of the tremble from 1.5 to 3 seconds. Whew. Maybe there's a world where you build this one now. I like what they're trying to do, though. They're trying to buff all the non-used relics to being contending with their opposites. I think the other one is still slightly better because having it reduce the amount of damage they're dealing is really good. But 3 seconds of like that soft, annoying CC is strong. Bro, this got changed like 5 years ago when everybody was building movement speed and movement speed was just busted. And then movement speed got nerfed to the ground. I think this needed a nice little buff. 25% makes it so you can actually outrun a lot of junglers. 20% junglers could like stay somewhat close with you. And then as soon as the sprint ran out, they would be back on top of you. So I like that. Oh, I'm worried about this one because this one is so bad. This one is genuinely so bad. The duration of the effect from 4 to 3 seconds. Increase the % current health damage tick from 5 to 8%. So they made this just a lot stronger top end. Maybe this puts us into a world where it's decent. 24% current health is really strong because you're also healing about 12%, or you're healing 12%. The other one explodes, which makes it really strong in team fights. This one is a heal to yourself, and healing right now is... like everybody's buying anti-heal, so the healing part of it is pretty irrelevant. So this is just a little bit damage. This is probably a little extra damage on just one person, but the other one's better on spread out targets. So maybe that's where they differ. Spirit Robe buff. That's a nice buff. That's a nice buff. I was worried they were going to buff the stats or something. A little cost decrease is nice. The only problem you get to is junglers buying this at 2,400 gold, maybe becomes a problem, but 2,400, not too bad. Gauntlet of Thebes, the number of stacks on this item from 50 to 55. This is kind of a nerf and a buff. Weird. I mean, it's not like that big of a nerf because now you need like 5 extra stacks before you're fully stacked. But I mean, adding 5 procs to this item, I don't think breaks it or anything. I think this item was already underbought because renewal, everybody's building anti-heal. Manticore just got a cost, really big cost increase. It kind of just leaves you with Thebes as your only true option with so much anti-heal being bought. And now that you're buffing Thebes, we might just go back to a Thebes only meta. Sylvanas buff. Now increases to 1 second cooldown at 15 instead of 17. So this is just a lineup with starters, which is a good change. And then the root is down from 16 to 15 and then scaling to... It's a nice Sylvanas buff. Does this really do that much? No. You'll play Sylvanas because you want to play him, or you won't play Sylvanas because you don't want to play him. You're not going to play him because his root is 1 second less. This one's actually a pretty big change, I'll say. Xing Chen, This used to be 14 seconds, and then they nerfed it to 16 seconds, and it's good to see it just reverted. Getting the killing blow on a target from 20 to 25%. Is this a revert? I feel like this used to be 25%, but maybe not. And the mana restore. With how Gilded used to work, it used to be you bought the item because it was statted well and it gave you gold. Now it doesn't give you any gold and it's statted good, but it gives you no gold. The problem is the other items are statted better. Death Toll makes you kind of like unkillable in the early game. Really hard to lose lane unless the enemy also goes Death Toll because you have full health, full mana the entire time. And then you look at Cowl, and Cowl just scales really well into the late game. It gives you some attack speed in the early game. I think Gilded is still just short of both Cowl and Death Toll, but it's a good place to start instead of just hitting the cost of it or the gold. Increased attack speed from successfully killing the... So this item is now... this item is now giving you 75% attack speed around minion waves. 75%. There might be a world where Olorun and Soul just build full magical power, and then they just build this item, and then they're just 800 power and then 2 attack speed flat as long as they're fighting around minions. This is... I feel like this is unhealthy because this makes you want to play around minion waves, and it makes you like you fight around minions, or you fight on like a jungle camp or something like that, or you get a kill and then you're fully stacked on this. I feel like it's just volatile. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is not that bad of a change, but I've never liked this item because I hated how just weird it was using it. Griffin Wings. With how many hunter items have been getting nerfed, and then you get a Griffin Wings buff, this item is now, it's cheap and it's good power and it's good attack speed. This might be just something you build in the early game to get you through the mid game into the late game. The problem is hunters don't really care about that curve. They'd rather try to get to their strength as quick as they can, even if it means delaying it a little bit or making their early game a little bit less. I mean, 5 power, 5% attack speed for how cheap it is, and it's MP5 too. Maybe. Chronos. The attack speed on this effect from 15, 25% early game. Section 3 from 25% power to 35%. Stop time is now an extra 40 base damage late game. Accelerate is pretty big. This one's not too relevant, but it's not bad. Getting 25% attack speed early game, though, is pretty nice. And then late game having an extra 10%. You're still not going to use Section 3, I don't think. I think Section 4 is always just better. But maybe. I'm not a big Chronos player. You might have to go ask Zatman or somebody how they feel about Chronos. Danzaburo. Physical power from the pouch. He now gets 40 power late game, and Fool's Gold is giving him a little bit more base damage. Not a bad Danzaburo nerf. Not a bad Danzaburo nerf. Or buff, sorry. Hachi buff. Eagle Eye's basic attack power from 100 to 110. They're like, yeah, we kind of just gave this ability, but better to Ishtar, so maybe we got to give it some love. I do like this change, though. 110% is a good idea, I think. 6% at all ranks. Not bad. Attack speed scales, and this is the first ability you max, so it's not doing too much. I think this is the bigger buff for the late game of Hachi. This is just a little tiny bit of extra early game. And then Ishtar buff. Adjusted this ability so that Ishtar gets some additional immunity frames after hitting an enemy god with Jolt. It doesn't do too much with Ishtar. I mean, it's nice. It stops her from that ability getting interrupted. And then serrated buff. I like this. This is a good buff. Still worse than Titan's Bane because unfortunately Titan's Bane is just statted out of its mind and it's just a really good item. But this is a good start, I think. And then Bastet buff. Dude, they literally just go back and forth on this. 25%, 20%, 25%, 20%, 25%, 20%. I don't know. The character should stay, I think, at 20%. At 25%, this ability now scales by 100%. If you build 400 power, the ability is going to be doing an extra 400 damage, which is kind of crazy. Buffs Bastet's late game, 100%. And then Cleo, a little extra damage on her too in the late game. That's a nice little buff. I feel like she was lacking a little bit, and it's good to buff her full power build instead of her solo lane build, which I hate. That's the patch notes 9.1. I thought this was going to be laid out really weird, but I actually kind of like how this is laid out instead. I really, really like the relic changes. That's probably my favorite part of the patch is the relic changes. Overall, this patch was great. I think they hit on a lot. The mage buffs were also cool. Like Scylla's buff was cool. I mean, overall, this patch was really good. I'd give it like a 9. Probably a 9 out of 10. But there it is. I hope you guys enjoyed the patch. I hope you guys enjoyed the overview. If you guys did, make sure you guys leave a like, sub. We're almost to 10K. Let me know what you guys liked about the chat too, or the patch too. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace.